Gerver. Richard, I want to ask you a question because you and I spoke the other day and we were talking about grown-ups and how we have to change and embrace learning. And one thing struck me, which was everything we talked about was like us as adults and what we need to be doing in order to kind of forward and kind of head into new paths and new wonders. Let me take you back to actually your roots and who you really are, which is an educator. Do we need to change how we educate children? Because there we run the fear of it's about getting stuff right and wrong. And one of the things I remember you said to me previously was don't be scared of getting stuff wrong. But actually that's what taught to us.
It's absolutely crucial to our future, to our organisation's future, to humanity's future, because when the mass education system was first created, it was predicated on, if you like, being a filtration system. We find out what people are good at, what they're bad at, and then we push them down certain routes. And those certain routes will lead them to professions. Some of them may be great professions, legal, accountancy, working at high levels of business. Some may be manual, but the point is we get filtered into the route that's right for us. And then what we're taught is once you go down that route, get your head down, do it as well and as hard as you can, and your reward will be certainty. A salary, a job for life, potentially a mortgage, although these days more likely to be extortionate rent. You might build a pension, have some holidays, a car, all that kind of stuff, right? But stick to it. And in a way, the education system has therefore always been predicated on the kind of industrial model of how do we make people more and more efficient? How do we get them to think efficiently? How do we get them to produce efficiently? In other words, do the same thing over and over again. And the evidence we need from you is routine cognition. We need to know that you can take in information, remember it, and repeat it technically efficiently. Of course, what we all know now is we're living in a post-industrial world, right? We're living in a world which is changing dramatically and radically. And the truth is, we also know the world isn't going to slow down. So we're never going to get to a point where we go, can we go back to the certain world we lived in 30, 40? It's not going to happen. And so if we want young people coming into the workplace, whether it's through school leadership, apprenticeships, or high-level university students, we need to actually furnish them. I don't call them skills or knowledge, I call them traits. We need to focus explicitly more on traits. We need to help them develop their communication skills. We need to help them understand how to relationship build. Simple stuff like how to look somebody in the eyes, how to greet and introduce themselves, how to make a point whilst listening to other people's views and opinions so that they can learn to collaborate, work in teams, how to solve problems without relying on somebody else to solve that problem for us. Now, at the moment, those things are implicit in the education system. We have to draw them out and make them explicit and give them equal weight to the things we've always valued traditionally about our educational journey.
Does society appreciate learning? Do we appreciate education, or do we kind of progress and actually it's all about process, it's all about order, and the whole concept about us becoming better humans, is lost on us?
I think it's a really potent, very powerful, very salient question. I think the problem is most people view learning as something they have to go through, a bit like a Catholic version of purgatory, right? It's something we tick the box on. We have to we go through till 18 at school, we go to university, some of us, we get the next qualification, and then hopefully we get out at 21, 22, or if we're going into medical professions, something like that, but it's finite. That's the point, right? And then we can start living our lives. Then we go into our professional environments and our professional arenas. And one of the things that I've really been conscious about over the last couple of decades is, for me, actually learning and the ability to change are intrinsically linked, right? Because they're the same thing. Can you find are you curious about something? Do you have the confidence to explore it? Are you prepared to be wrong or make a mistake? And are you prepared to learn from it? And so one of the things for me is learning needs to be built into the DNA of every single one of us and every one of our organizations as a lifelong commitment. Otherwise, what happens is what we see happening now, which is learning tends to be treated largely as reactive in organizations. So people feel they're learning just to catch up with the problem or deal with something that's already happening. The perfect example is AI, right? So I had a conversation 15 years ago with a guy called Nolan Bushnell, who was the creator of Atari. He was the founder of Atari system. And I was asking him 15 years ago, I said, what are you working on now? And he said, everything, all my resource is in AI. And he said, it amazes me that nobody's trying to get their heads around it. Fast forward 15 years, and all the learning that's now going on in our organizations is around AI, but it's in a desperate attempt to catch up, right? So we have to find a way to stop education feeling finite or stop education feeling like something we do when we have to react to something.
And it's great because honestly, kind of from our experience, we had a politician in the office a while back, and they said the biggest problem we have is the fact that stuff is happening, and by the time politics and like law catches up with it, it's already in place. And so I suppose the obvious question then to you is, well, okay, if like you explain it and it's kind of, that makes perfect sense, what stops us thinking it, doing it, treating it as kind of opportunity?
Yeah, I think a number of things. I think partly we treat education as a preparation for something rather than a constancy of evolution, change and development. A lot of people see education, as I kind of threw away before, as a chore that they have to go through. And once, I mean, you know, the number of people I know that leave school and university that go, thank God I'm out of there, I never want to go back, thank you very much, now I can earn money and do my job. But I think the biggest thing is this, and it's akin to, if you like, a startup company. If you imagine that you as a human being when you're born are like a startup, right? And the thing is, you've got nothing to lose because you don't know anything, you don't possess anything, and therefore learning is kind of, yeah, I don't mind getting stuff wrong and developing new ideas and new thinking and new ways of seeing the world. It's great. But as we get older and then we become adult and then we have a job, and the job leads to personal responsibilities, professional responsibilities, or like a startup business, you know, all the ideas are flying as a startup company. The biggest challenge for a startup is when they become successful and established, because then you've got something to lose, which is the same thing in the human journey. And so we stop being proactive. We stop thinking about how can I continue to evolve, develop, question, challenge, push my boundaries of knowledge and learning and my organization's boundaries of knowledge and learning. And we start to become obsessed with holding on to what we have. And in a way, you know, so much of what we are conditioned to think in our lives is about the job is to seek out certainty, and when you've got certainty, protect it. And it's one of the things we've got to shift that paradigm. Otherwise, we and our organizations are just going to continue to feel increasingly exhausted because we're running just to keep up.
I'm really listening and really kind of agreeing with everything you say. So are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
Oh my goodness me. I am genuinely optimistic. I think, and I'm going to be really grandiose here now, Nick. Right? I think we are living through. I think we are living through a dark period. No one can say we're not living through a profound period of darkness. You know, nationally, globally, politically, economically, environmentally, all of the illies. Right? We're living through bad times, illy-wise, and I think. But when you look at human history, every period of darkness is followed by a profound explosion in human innovation, creativity, learning and development. In other words, a renaissance. And I do think we are on the verge of a renaissance. I think we've got to ride out the death thrash of a really dark period in our time. But I do think looking at future generations coming on, and there are challenges and issues as there are with every generation, I do think we are in a place where if we can if we can put learning and change at the heart of our cultures, personally and professionally, and with all the technology at our disposal, at the ability to connect and interconnect, to broaden your horizons and look beyond your workplace, your job description, I think if we can create that culture and we can reignite the power of human innovation and human creativity, we could be on the cusp of the next great renaissance.
So I love. You're most welcome to be grandiose about that anytime, because that filled me with joy. But so go on, give me, if there's one thing, if there's one tip, one change you'd like to see, the kind of that people will just adopt, like which would help us push us forward and maybe shorten the time for us to get there, what would that be?
I think the main thing is to, and it's an old adage, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway. I think the point behind it is this. Remember that nobody learns anything new by getting something right. You only ever learn something new from the point of a mistake, the realization you don't know something, or that you can't do something. And that is the wonderful spark of moment where you evolve, you change, you develop, you learn. And so no matter how small that first step is, I say to everyone, just once, fight against the reflex of, oh no, I'll just stick, even if it's, the next time somebody goes for a meal, right? And you go to a restaurant, and it's a restaurant you've been to half a dozen times, and I know you, Nick, you'll have restaurant, you'll know the maitre d', and you'll go, I'll have the Dover sole, because I love the Dover sole, I always have the Dover sole. Just once, try something you've never had before, or something you think you might not like, because that behavior becomes habitual. And the point is this: the more you overcome an anxiety, a nervousness, a reflexive fear of trying something different, and it comes out okay, you actually put a little poker chip in your bag of resilience, of self-confidence, which allows you to go to the roulette wheel the next time and put maybe 2 or 3 chips on, instead of just standing in the background clutching onto one chip, thinking, oh, it's a lovely game, but I haven't got enough resilience to play right now. And the point is, if the antithesis of what I just said in terms of the grandiose vision, for me, that change, that development, that learning needs to be granular. We kind of need to reignite the infantile curiosity in every one of us that allows us just to put wooden blocks on top of wooden blocks and giggle if it falls over before we try again.
Richard, I think on that note, and honestly, I paused there because I was like, I just soaking that in. Been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much indeed.
It's been such a pleasure, Nick. Thanks ever so much.